Hello. They said as soon as I hit the launch button, we're going live. So give me a couple moments. There's the Q&A. This is my first time on the moderator end of this. Anyway, so let's get going. Have that in place. So my name is Bryan Peterson, and I'm here with, I'm with Achieve, Grow, Succeed Coaching. And I want to welcome you to the Life Coach University and its Pay It Forward platform, where coaches from around the world have gathered together on a mission to coach millions more. We share our expertise and guidance to help you in every area of your life, your business and career, your finances, your relationships, your personal development, your family and friends, your spirituality, your health, and much, much more. We have coaches here who can help you release your negative emotions caused by trauma. We can help you find your purpose and give your meaning to your life. We can help get your life organized and live a life by design. We can help you break free from burnout. The topics are endless, and so is the amount of love and compassion that I have experienced since I've joined this. And all we ask of you is that you pay it forward. We don't care how you do it. We just want to create the biggest ripple effect of gift giving the world has ever seen. You could pay it forward to yourself by using the coaching that you've learned on here. You could share it with a friend. You could share the Life Coach University with them. You can give them a hug. You can make somebody laugh. We really don't care how you do it. We just want you to join us and help making the world the kind of world that we want to live in, which is one that is filled with peace, joy, love, and meaningful connection. So thank you for being you. You are simply amazing. And now let's dive into it. I have broken this down into 3 categories here. What is self-sabotage? Why do we do it? And how do we do it? And then at the end of each section, I'm going to break and give you all a chance to ask some questions so we can clear up any confusion or help you understand it better, right? So that being said, I'm going to dive right in. Once again, my name is Bryan Peterson. I'm with Achieve, Grow, Succeed Coaching. And we're here today to talk about self-sabotage. Why do we do it and how can we stop? So the first area that we're going to do is we're going to do what is self-sabotage. And then I'm also going to add, what does your brain have to do with it? We're going to talk about how the brain works a little bit and how our behaviors work, because when you better understand that, you're going to better understand why we actually self-sabotage. And anytime we actually understand something better and we understand why we're doing it, when we go to do the things to stop doing it, it gives them much more meaning because we understand what that action is doing to help us, right? And anytime we understand it better, we actually do it more and stuff. So the first thing that I want to share with you is that I am a chatty person. I could talk forever. I'm like a chatty Kathy doll pulling my own chain. So I've actually got a little presentation here on my screen to kind of help me keep me on track. So every once in a while I'll be glancing at that to help myself out and help myself keep on track. Otherwise I'll just talk. The first thing I want to share with you is that self-sabotage is normal, right? We all do it. I don't know anybody out there in some way, shape, or form, any of my friends or family that have some area of their lives that they don't want to get better in, that they're struggling with, right? We have a tendency as human beings to put this weight on our shoulders, like we're the only one experiencing it, and that weight just gets so heavy. So I just wanted to help alleviate that weight a little bit and let you know that you're not alone in doing it. All right, that's going to help me out a little bit better. So we're not alone. So what is it then? What is self-sabotage? The very first thing that I like to do when I'm teaching and researching something is to define it. So the dictionary definition of self-sabotage, self means you, of course, and sabotage, I love reading this. It says the act of destroying or damaging something deliberately so that it doesn't work correctly. Like my own personal definition is like when we unconsciously cause ourselves to fail, even when we think we're doing all the things right, or consciously cause ourselves to fail by not doing the things that we know we should be doing. So that's self-sabotage. I'm going to give you a couple different examples to kind of help it solidify in your mind. One is about me. Like when I first started my coaching business, I wanted to grow it. I knew I needed to market myself better. So I bought all these marketing books and programs and stuff. And I did everything that these marketing books and programs said, right? Here's the to-do list. And I just do. And I did 1, 2, and 3, but I still wasn't experiencing success in it. And so something inside there, that I was doing or thinking was causing me to not get the success I wanted. So I was self-sabotaging. A better example that you might understand is losing weight. Say you want to lose weight, and so you go out there and you either get a gym membership or you buy all the gym equipment, you buy all the clothes, you get all the foods lined up, you have all these videos lined up for the next day when you're getting ready to start, and you psych yourself up all day long. And then when you lay down in bed at night, you lay your head on the pillow and you're dreaming of this nice fit body that you're going to have and this new person that you're going to meet because of it, only to wake up in the morning and you don't even feel like getting out of bed, right? You're self-sabotaging. Or take that same example, and instead of not getting out of bed, you actually get out of bed, and instead that little voice on your shoulder just starts saying, oh, hey, Bryan, you picked the wrong diet. You need to go get new food. You need to get paleo instead of vegan. Or you need to get better equipment. And so you just don't do anything at all, right? That's self-sabotaging. I think all of us at one time or another have had that little voice on our shoulder talking to us. Mine likes to say, hey, Bryan, you're not good enough sometimes. Or sometimes we'll get it in an actual feeling, like when you couldn't get out of bed, like that anxiety feeling. I get that feeling deep. It's this deep, hollow, paralyzing feeling in my stomach that just causes me not to take action. So that's what self-sabotage is. And now we're going to talk a little bit about how the brain is involved in the process and how our behaviors work in the process. And I kept this really simple today as far as the teachings go, because I just wanted it to be clear and easy for you to understand. So I know there's probably a little bit more to these teachings that I could have gone into, but I just wanted to keep it really simple. So how do our brains operate, right? We're basically operating under 2 systems throughout the day, which is our fight or flight, and that's our sympathetic nervous system, and then rest and regeneration, which is our parasympathetic nervous system. So way back in Neanderthal times, in order for us to survive, we were built this way. And to do it, and to do both of those, either one, fight or flight or rest or regeneration, we need lots of energy. And the example that I like to use is that, say you're a Neanderthal man and you're trucking down the path and all of a sudden the saber-toothed tiger jumps out. You need to have energy to either fight that tiger or run from that tiger. Or sometimes you might freeze, but we don't want to do that, right? And then let's say you do end up killing the saber-toothed tiger. You now need energy for rest and regeneration. You need to be able to digest it, which takes energy. And then you need to heal. Maybe you got some cuts and scratches or bites along the way. And so you need to heal from those. And so we need that energy. And how do we conserve that energy? Our brains are designed to conserve as much energy as possible so that when we have it when we need it most, like when the tiger jumps out, we've got that energy. And then there's basically 2 ways in which we expend energy. And I'm sure you're all very familiar with the first one, which is physical energy. That's physically actively doing stuff. We know that that burns energy. But the other one, mentally exerting ourselves, yes, this actually takes energy. I always chuckle when I did this presentation because I always think of your thinking actually is burning some sort of calories in there. I don't recommend it as a system of trying to lose weight, because I always just picture somebody just thinking really hard trying to lose weight, and I don't think that that's going to happen. But yes, so when you're thinking, when you're consciously thinking, it takes effort and it takes energy. And so your brain is trying to conserve that, right? So how does your brain conserve this energy? How does it decide what's important and what's not? What your brain does is, in order to conserve it, it likes to revert to its default programming, or what I like to call autopilot. And we're running on this autopilot probably about 95% of the day. And what do I mean by autopilot? Some of the natural things that we do are on autopilot, or are autonomic systems, like your breathing or your heart pumping. But some of our behaviors are on autopilot as well. And the best way for me to describe this is, from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, like, you're doing the same stuff and you're doing the same things every day. And they've gotten to the point where you've done them so much, they're like on autopilot. Like, you get up from the same side of the bed every day and you brush your teeth the same way every day, like with the same hand. You dry off after you get out of the shower the same way. You probably start with your head, then you work with your shoulders, you flip it around, you dry your back, and then you do it the same way. You drive to work the same way. You take the same turns every day. So you've done these behaviors so much that they've been built into your muscle memory, okay? And so how are these default programs created then? If I'm just running on these habits, or these behavioral habits that I'm doing every day, how are they created, right? So if you repeat a behavior enough times, it becomes a habit. And if you repeat that habit enough times, it gets basically integrated into your default programming, so that your brain, you can actually do it without thinking about it. Because remember, thinking takes energy. So I always like to explain this, that habits go from thinking to doing to being, which is your muscle memory. And in the very beginning, we have to do a lot of thinking and doing before it becomes part of our muscle memory. And let me give you an example of this. Think about getting a new job, and you're going to drive there on your first day of work. And it's been a month since you've had that interview. And so the way there is just not so fresh in your mind. Maybe you have to get on Google Maps, and you're listening to it in whatever Australian voice you have programmed on there. Turn left in 1,000 feet, you know. So you're thinking at the same time that you're driving, where's that street that I've got to turn on? So you're thinking and doing, thinking and doing. And now fast forward to a year from now, when you pull up into that parking spot, and I know this has happened to you because it happens to me, it happens to everybody. You ever had a time where you've driven to the store, or you have gotten to work, and you pull up in the parking spot and you're thinking, oh my God, I don't remember the last 2 minutes. I tell you what flashes through my mind every single time was like, did I run a red light? It's kind of scary sometimes, but that's autopilot. Like, you've done it so many times that your brain just says, Bryan, I've got this. I've got the muscle memory. Just do whatever else you want to do. I'm going to conserve energy because I don't want you thinking right now and wasting energy. I'm just going to let you do it. That's why more accidents happen within the last mile of when you get home, because you've driven that last mile so many times that your brain simply takes over driving, and all of a sudden your brain's like, Bryan, I got this. And you're like, left, right, left, right. And next thing you know, you're taking out your neighbor's mailbox because you weren't paying attention. Hopefully you haven't done that, but that's how it works. So if our behaviors are on autopilot, it stands to reason that our way of thinking, our physical behaviors are on autopilot. Our mental ones are too, our ways of thinking. And that's what I'm focusing on here when we're talking about self-sabotage. So you're probably asking yourself, well, Bryan, how are my thoughts on autopilot? Well, the same way you build muscle memory from driving that last mile home, our mental muscle memory is built the same way. You've encountered the same circumstance so many times that you don't even need to stop and think what you're going to say or actually think about your thoughts. Give me one moment here. So yeah, so think about this, like if somebody cuts you off in traffic, it's probably happened so many times that the first thing you think is, man, this guy's a jerk. And the first feeling you get would be anger. And maybe the first action that you take might be either hitting the brakes, or for some of you, you may hit the gas a little bit and ride their tail a little bit because you're so pissed off. But it's happened so many times, it's just an automatic behavior, okay? And so that thought that kicked in right away, man, this guy's a jerk, it just came. It just happened immediately because it's happened so many times, you've programmed it in. So if you repeat a thought that you deem to be true enough times, it becomes a very strong belief. And for the simplicity of this, I'm just going to give you the two basic beliefs. But basically, the belief systems that we have, the beliefs about ourselves and the beliefs we have about people and our environments, are is the filter. It's called the reticular activating system. I'm not going to get into too many details, but it's the way we filter and the way we perceive things around us. Think of it as putting on your glasses and you have 4 billion things coming at you every second and your brain can't handle it all, so it has to filter them some way. And it filters them through your beliefs. So just for the sake of simplicity in this, I basically boiled it down to we have two beliefs that are running at any given moment. The first ones are ones that limit you, and I'll refer to these as limiting beliefs. And the other ones are ones that serve you, and I'll refer to those as powerful beliefs. So some limiting beliefs might sound like I'm not good enough, or I'll never be successful at that, or I wrote this one in there because my wife is always saying this to herself when she gets in the kitchen. I'm not good in the kitchen, she'll say, when she really is, right? But that's a very limiting belief for her, because when she goes to make something in the kitchen, she's already forecasting to herself that she's not going to do a very good job, even though she does. Powerful beliefs will sound something like, I am good enough, or I can do anything I set my mind to, or my personal favorite, and this is something that I lean on all the time, if somebody else can do it, then so can I. That one helps me out in any kind of challenging situations that I encounter. It's a powerful thing for me to step into it, because I've got the same things that everybody else has. I've got thumbs, I've got a mind, I can do it if they can do it, right? So now that we know how the brain operates, let's talk about how our behaviors work. All human behavior runs basically on a cybernetic loop. This loop has been called a variety of names and explained in slightly different ways depending on who you talk to, but they all incorporate the same things. And now you're asking, Brian, what is the cybernetic loop? So this is just the way our behaviors happen. And there's 5 steps in it. We encounter a circumstance or something in our environment, and that circumstance causes us to think certain thoughts. And then that thought causes us to feel, excuse me, a certain way in our body. We get a certain feeling. And from that feeling, we take some sort of action, or maybe inaction in some cases. And of course, we're all taught that our actions create results, right? So it's a circumstance, creates a thought that gives us a feeling in our bodies. And from that feeling, we take action, and then the action produces a result. I want to give you an example, because sometimes that's a lot to take in. It's a very simple but very powerful way of understanding why we behave the way we do. So the example would be, my circumstance might be, I have no money in the bank to pay my bills. The thought might be, I'm not good enough, Brian, you're not good enough to get a higher paying job. I might be thinking that to myself, and that causes me to feel depressed or sad. It may cause somebody else to feel a different way, but in this scenario, it's making me feel sad or depressed. And when I get sad or depressed, what do? What actions do I take? Well, I probably sit around. I used to drink. Some people overeat. I may watch TV. I may scroll through social media, but I don't learn any new skills, and I don't gain any new abilities. So what's the result in this case? The result is I am still not qualified to get a higher paying job. And the result is always going to support the belief or the thought, sorry. So the thought in this case was, I'm not good enough to get a higher paying job, which caused me to feel sad. And then I didn't do anything. I sat around and watched TV. I didn't try to get any better. And the result is, well, I'm still not qualified to get a higher paying job. So that's how it works. That's how the behavior cycle works. And we've all been programmed basically from a very early age that our actions get results, right? And I'm sure it was probably your parents going, you better be aware of the consequences of that, because I know my parents used to tell me that all the time. And I know this because I was grounded like half my childhood. I remember one year I was like grounded for like 6 months of the year. I told you I would get off topic. But you're probably thinking to yourself, Bryan, oh, wait a sec. So we've been taught that our actions create results. Well, I'm here to kind of flip that a little bit and tell you that's not really the case. And I know you're probably thinking, Bryan, no, actions do get our results, right? If I lift weights, I get stronger. And Bryan, if I wanted to get on a date, I'd have to ask somebody, which is asking, and the result is either a no or a yes. So I had to take the action to get the result. But let me explain to you why it's our thoughts that actually create our results. And when you understand that better, when we go into why we self-sabotage, you're going to understand it a little bit better. If you look at that cybernetic loop that I was talking about, the action step comes only after the feeling step. And the feeling comes actually after the thought. And the thought was only driven by circumstances, and circumstances are always neutral in our life, like $0 in the bank. That's just a circumstance. It's actually my thoughts about that circumstance that give it meaning, which then give me a feeling that drive the action. So in reality, it's actually our thoughts that are driving the behavioral vehicle. It's the thing that's pushing us forward. We may think it's the feeling in our body that causes us to take some action, but there's always a thought behind the feeling. And on a side note, I always tell people, I always teach my clients, or I teach people, if you're going to build an action plan for anything, build a thought plan first, build a belief plan first, and then the action plan. Because if you take an action plan and your only thoughts that are driving those actions are your limiting beliefs, then you're not going to succeed in the actions that you're taking. So another interesting fact that plays into this too is that our brains, our minds do not understand the difference between something that is real and something that is imagined. This one amazes me. Human beings are the only people on the planet that can put themselves into fight or flight by just thinking thoughts, right? Think about watching a horror movie. Like if you're watching a horror movie, you get scared, you're panicking and stuff, but it's just a movie. It's not really happening, but your mind thinks it's real. That's why it's causing you to feel that way. And that's why you might take action, or you might cover up. And this is literally like why you will sit, or why people will sit with anxiety all day long and overwhelmed, because they cannot stop that repeating picture or image or thought in their head. They just keep thinking it, causing the same feeling, causing them the same actions over and over again. So I'm going to pause for a quick recap, and then we can ask some questions. So self-sabotage is like shooting yourself in the foot before you get ready to run a race. We know that everybody does it in some way, shape, or form. Thinking takes energy, and in order to conserve energy to survive, our brains run automatic programs, whether those are physical or mental. Our limiting beliefs are part of that mental part, and they've been repeated so much that they're part of our automatic programming. Our way of thinking becomes part of our programming. Our behavioral cycle goes in this cybernetic loop, and it's actually our thoughts that create our results. So does anybody have any questions at this point? There's a Q&A box, or you can put it in the chat. If I don't see anything, I will, oops, I've got a question here. This person said, this is really useful to plan a thought or a belief plan. I have started so many projects, and when it doesn't work, I hear myself saying, see, I knew it wouldn't work. Maybe I have planned in the belief from the start that it would not work. Yes, yes, absolutely. That's the way it works. It's just amazing at how our automatic default behavior, and we can go way deeper into that. It actually stems from your childhood learning, but that's for another thing. So, okay, well, let me jump into why we self-sabotage. The simplest way of explaining it is that every situation we encounter, and there's two of them, whether they're known or unknown. I see another question in there. Wait a sec. What do you do when you want to change a belief, but the new belief feels like a lie? So I'm going to bring that up later because I've got some tools for that later on. So thank you. That's a very great question. We will definitely get to that. So why do we self-sabotage then? The simplest way is that when we encounter any situation, whether it's known or unknown in front of us, we allow our default way of thinking, and in this case, it's the limiting beliefs, to control that cybernetic loop and control our behaviors. If it's a known situation, you've encountered it so many times, your response is now hardwired in. And the program becomes automatically played in your brain. That's why when you're trying to try something new, it's so hard to get started because your brain keeps wanting to go back to this old default way of thinking. So think of your old default way of thinking as this super highway where there's 5 to 10 lanes, and no matter what happens in the lane in front of it, your brain can switch to another lane and keep going 75 miles an hour. If it does encounter something that's unknown, this is basically when you encounter something that you haven't had time to process yet, your brain throws itself into fight or flight. It doesn't know the situation, which in most of us, this is like fear or anxiety or overwhelm. And since your brain hasn't had time to process it, it needs to find a way to compare it to something similar. So it basically takes the circumstances that are happening in front of you, and it pulls an old memory out and it puts them together. And it's like, Bryan, you know, what is similar about these scenarios? So it starts to ask, how is this situation like ones I've seen before? And then it will ask, how did I respond in the past? And this is cue the limiting beliefs. Like it might be like, if I'm starting a new business, it might be like, oh, remember, Bryan, the last time you did something similar like this, you told yourself you weren't good enough. And so it's like, yeah, I'll use that. It starts that. So think about starting something new like that business. In order to start that new thing, it's like your brain has this beautiful, wonderful destination to get to, but it has no path to get there. It doesn't have that super highway. And so you have to blaze this new trail. And that trail might be full of thorns and thistles. And then eventually you have to widen that and pave it to make it easier path to take. But all the while, your brain just says, nope, this is the easier path over here. My old limiting way of thinking, Bryan, is the way I need to go. It's so much easier than taking this new path. Because remember, doing something new requires you to think, which takes energy. And your brain's like, I need that energy for later on when that saber-toothed tiger jumps out, Bryan, I need that energy. I don't want you to think. I want to run this thing. So basically, it's simply easier and takes less effort for you to run your default way of thinking. And it takes time and energy. And time, of course, we're all overwhelmed anyway. We've already got our maxed out to-do list. And to add something new in there is going to cause us to put us in overwhelm. So we don't want to give ourselves more time. We just talked about that your brain doesn't want to waste the energy on it. So it's like, nope, I'm just going to go back to this. So if you put this all together, our habitual thoughts and our behaviors are then manifested into reality. So if you think about that cybernetic loop, if you continue to think the same thoughts, you're going to continue to feel the same way. And if you continue to feel the same way, it's going to cause you to take the same self-defeating actions, which is going to lead to the same unsuccessful or undesirable results. And that's self-sabotage in a nutshell. Now, I want you to know it goes the opposite way too. Like you have automatic programmed powerful thoughts in any area of your life. You can see where you're successful. Like maybe your finances suck and your health is really good. Well, you have powerful thoughts about your health that are driving you forward, that are causing you to take action to succeed. But in the area of finances, you have these limiting beliefs that are the driving the vehicle, causing you to take actions that are not succeeding. So self-sabotage happens, I kind of break it down really simple, either consciously or unconsciously. Consciously is when you actually hear that voice talking crap in the side of your head, telling you you're not good enough, or unconsciously, like I explained earlier, when you get that feeling in the pit of your stomach, that anxiety, that paralyzing feeling, and you don't take any action at all. So I'm going to do another quick recap here. We self-sabotage because it's easier and it takes less effort for our brain to run its default programming instead of actually having to consciously think about doing something new. So I've seen some other questions in here. Somebody else put, this is great. I now understand that it's my initial thought of something not working out that's making it not work out. Yeah, you're already programming in your head that you're not going to be good at doing it. Kind of like my wife going into the kitchen saying, I'm not good in the kitchen. Now, whether she says it out loud or not, that's her pervasive thought. And so when she messes up in the kitchen, she's going to have more evidence that's going to say, see, I told you so. So any more questions up to this point? I know it's a lot to take in. I'm trying to simplify it. We got another one here. Another person said, I totally feel like my brain is on a highway and it's going so fast. Yeah, it just, all of this stuff happens so fast. It took me a while. And in the next section, when I tell you what we can do to stop about it, some of this is going to make sense. But some of this stuff happens so fast, you don't even have time to think about it. Like your limiting beliefs, like you don't walk around just thinking I'm not good enough. When you go into doing something, it's silently just whispering it to you, right? And it's just amazing how fast you just get into that old default way of thinking. Like, think about maybe yelling at your spouse, and you want to try to stop yelling at your spouse, and all of a sudden she or he does something to anger you, and you're just like, ah! And then you step back, you're like, oh my God, I didn't want to do that, because it's been programmed in. It's just happening so fast. So great comment there. Appreciate that. All right, so we're going to jump into the final part, which is, I think, why you're all here. Like, how do we stop it? What can I stop? How do I stop, Brian? What can I do about it, right? So I'm going to share with you 5 tools today that are going to help you stop shooting yourself in the foot before the race and start helping you getting the results they want, right? Because that's what we're all here for. We just want to succeed. I just want to experience success in this area that I'm struggling so much in. So where do we start? My coaching, what I do is I teach people how to exercise their mental muscles. I know when everybody says, hey, I want to get healthier, they think I need to get physically fit and I need to eat better. But nobody thinks I need to exercise my mental muscles. And that's what got me into it. Hang on a second here. And if at any point I'm rattling on too fast too, you can ask me to pause and repeat too. But anyway, so nobody exercises their mental muscles. And so the very first muscle that I teach everybody, and this is the very first tool I want to share with you, is exercising your awareness muscle. Like, we cannot fix a problem that we're not aware of. We cannot fix a behavior or a habit that we don't know that we're doing. We can't fix a way of thinking if we don't understand that that's the way we're thinking, right? So we need to become aware of it. And everything we do, there is a gap between stimulus and response. And think of the stimulus as the circumstance or the environment in that part of the behavioral loop, right? Here's the stimulus, and then here's the response. And I want you to think of the response as the thought, feeling, or action part of the loop, right? And so a lot of times we go from the car cutting us off to just thinking that person's a jerk, and there's no gap in between there. but there actually is. And when we use our awareness muscle, when we increase our awareness muscle, we actually widen that gap. And inside that gap, we now have the ability to ask ourselves some questions. We can ask ourselves, we have the ability to respond successfully instead of the old way of thinking, right? So we can pause and ask ourselves the questions, what am I actually thinking? Well, I thought that person's a jerk, right? And maybe what do I want to think instead? Well, maybe I want to think that that person is they're in a hurry because they got to get to the hospital because their mom just had a heart attack. Well, that certainly makes me feel better. Now I'm not as anxious or pissed off that this person cut me off. So I've widened that gap and allowed myself to think a different thought. We can think, well, how am I feeling in the moment? And in that first reaction, that guy was pissed off because they cut him off. He was just angry. Well, now that I'm thinking a different thought, I can say, oh, well, now I'm feeling a little sympathetic or empathetic at this point. And then how am I reacting? I can ask that question as well. And in this case, maybe I let off the gas and I stop tailgating it as much because I don't want to put any more pressure on this person, right? So all of these questions that we're asking inside of that gap can help us understand our behavioral patterns even more, right? So part of the process of actually exercising your awareness muscle always begins basically with taking your past experiences, because it's hard to stop and assess things in real time. So the way we get better at it is we take, like hindsight is 20/20, right? So you could take some things that you've done in the past and you can say, okay, well, what was I thinking when I was doing that? How was I reacting? And you can assess all that. And then when you figured out those patterns, you can now begin to interrupt yourself in real time. I'll give you a small example. I had this habit, still kind of there, where when I'm doing something that's causing me to be a little bit nervous, it's something new, or maybe it's something tedious that my mind is saying, this is going to suck, I don't want to do this. I have this habit of getting up and going to the fridge, and I would just open up the fridge and I would just start snacking on something. But I wasn't really hungry, and I figured it out. And after I figured it out, I'll get to the fridge sometimes and actually open the door, and I'll actually ask myself, well, wait a sec, are you actually hungry? Have you been working so hard that you skipped a meal? Or are you just here to avoid it as whatever you're doing? So now I can stop that behavior in real time and then get myself to go back to do what I was doing, right? And a simple way for you to track these behaviors is to start tracking your behaviors. Just get a sheet and start tracking your behaviors from the time you wake up till the time you go to bed for an entire week. I had a Excel sheet or a piece of paper that tracked it out for every half an hour. And I know every half an hour sounds kind of a lot in the beginning. There were times where in the very beginning that I would go back and I hadn't written anything for a couple hours. And so I would go back, fill it in. But by the time you get to the end of the week, you'll have this thing around you so much, you'll get really good at filling it in. And you could, the things that you want to track on there are what physical things that I actually do. You know, I brushed my teeth, I did whatever. But the physical things that you did all day long. How did you feel while you were doing them? What were my thoughts that I was actually thinking during those times? And then after you get that week's worth of content there, you can sit back and you can look at it and you could look for patterns in your behavior. And when you find that behavioral pattern, like I did with getting up and going to the fridge to get something to eat, you could find the underlying thoughts that are driving them. What was I thinking during that time? And you can create a list of these, I call them limiting beliefs, of these limiting thoughts that I'm thinking that I want to get rid of. And you can actually create a list of thoughts that you want to think. And this is going to go back to answer that question earlier. What do you do when you want to change a belief, but the new belief feels like a lie? So in this case, you've got a belief that you want to, I call it uninstalling your old limiting beliefs, like uninstalling Windows 98 and installing the next one. In this case, if the belief is I'm not good enough, and the new belief I want is I am good enough, but that seems like a stretch for me. I don't really believe it. What I do is I create a ladder of beliefs. And at the top of the ladder is I am good enough. Okay. And the rung I'm on right now is I'm not good enough, which just feels horrible. Well, what's the next rung up on the ladder that you can believe, that you can hang on to, and that you can move through? For some of you, it might look like, well, I can learn how to be good enough. That could be a belief. Or like mine, if somebody else can do it, then I can do it. So you then latch on to the, well, I can learn how to do it. And then you can go from I can learn how to do it to, well, I am learning how to do it. And then the next rung up from that might be, well, I've had some success doing it. I'm having small successes now. And so you can grab on rung to rung to rung until you finally get to that rung where it is, I am good enough. And so each one of those is like, because I know the feeling you get when it's just cognitive dissonance there, where you're thinking, well, that's like affirmations. That's why affirmations don't work. I am good enough. I am good enough. I am good enough. But your little voice over here is, no, you're not. No, you're not. And that's the way. Just crawl up the ladder. Just pull yourself up rung by rung and stay on that ladder. And then there's another muscle that I refer to after there. I didn't share it with what I'm telling you right now, but it's called the evidence muscle. Is start finding evidence of why you're on that rung. If the rung is, I can learn how to do it, what's other evidence that you have to support that? Well, I learned how to do this other thing in this other area. Oh yeah, so I learned how to do that. I learned how to do that. Oh, I have learned how to do that. And you can put that all together and that supports it. It's like, picture your belief like a table leg, a limiting belief. You want to knock out all the other things that are supporting that table leg, and you want to put in new thoughts or new evidence that supports it. So every time you find evidence supporting your new belief, you're putting a new table leg underneath that table top until it becomes so stable that you're not going to knock it over. Okay, so I hope that helped. So now that we've got a list of things that I don't want to think, and we've got a list of things that I do want to think, the next week, what I want you to do is I want you to set several random reminders throughout the day. It could be, I recommend 7 times throughout the day. This could be an alarm on your phone. If you don't have an alarm on your phone, I would recommend you could put Post-it notes. For some of my business clients out there, they actually change their passwords. So every time they get in a password to get into something, it's got the new belief that they want to think. And so when these alarms or these reminders come off, you can stop yourself. And this is where we're going to stop and widen the gap. What am I feeling? Am I feeling the anxiety? Am I thinking the old way? Well, if I am, then I want to insert the new belief with the supporting evidence in that. So I am I'm literally programming myself 7 times a day. And the more you do something, remember, if you go back, the way I made something become an automatic default programming was I repeated it again and again and again, thinking and doing until it became a habit. So 7 times a day, I'm telling you, if you do this 7 times a day after a week, it's going to be on the top of your mind. You're going to start thinking about it ahead of time, actually. So now you can consciously start thinking the thoughts that serve you. And when you're thinking those thoughts that serve you, are actually taking action that's driving that result that you desire, if you remember that cybernetic loop. Okay, so the next tool on the list is actually going to help you with this process of exercising your awareness muscle, because we wanted to, the next tool is evaluations. That's going to help you with the exercising your awareness muscle. It's going to help you evaluate what you've got in front of you, that weeks long worth of content. So evaluations are essential in assessing your results and creating plans to achieve what you want. So how do we do them? There's all kinds of ways of evaluating. I've got a 4-step way that's just super simple. Step 1 is, what did I do well or what worked? Step 2 is, what didn't work or what didn't I do well? Step 3 is, what would I do differently? And step 4 is, what's the new plan and when am I going to execute it? In fact, step 4 is where most people go wrong because they don't even do it. They'll just ask themselves, what did I do well and what did I do wrong? But they don't create a new plan. So the first thing I want you to do is focus on what you did well. That's going to be all the positive stuff. You're more apt to continue with the evaluation than if you started with the negative stuff. So once you get all the positive things you did well, then you move into what didn't work. And we have a tendency at this point to judge ourselves. So when you hit this point, you're writing down what you didn't do well and what didn't work. I want you to take it and I want you to look at it through neutral eyes, or like a good teacher or a good leader would do, and just pointing out the behavior that you did wrong, not that you're wrong. It's like saying the difference between thinking I'm a failure or, well, I failed at that. It's two different ways of thinking it. So neutrally analyze what you did wrong and write those out, which brings us to the third part of the evaluation, which is what would I do differently? And you could do a couple different things here. You could take something that you did wrong and change it, and then try that, or you can completely get rid of it and insert something new. So now we're at the 4th step, and that is, what's the new plan? This is simple. Take what worked and what would I do differently, and you blend them together into the new plan. I mentally walk myself through it to make sure it flows, and then I set a time, a date of when I'm going to execute it, how I'm going to execute it, and I also plan when I'm going to evaluate it at the end. And the tool that's going to help you with those evaluations is the next tool is assessing your habits, because we want to create habits. And remember, habits are 95% of our day is spent on autopilot, is the actual habit. So if I want to make evaluations part of my habit, I need to assess the habits I actually have, right? So you could use that daily tracker you have, and you can start finding out habits that are serving you and that habits that are dragging you down, right? Bad habits, good habits, right? And I always teach people, get rid of the bad habits first, because chances are you're going to experience some immediate success by just getting rid of doing the things that you don't want to be doing. Might give you instant success, and you may not even need to create other habits. You may experience enough success by just doing that by itself, right? And then when you have those immediate successes, it gives you confidence in building new and better habits, right? So how do we build habits? Oh, wait a sec. So you've gotten rid of it. You can decide what types of habits I need to have that are going to get me the results that I want, right? Let's say that if you were trying to get healthier, some of the habits might be exercising more or eating better. And so one of the habits might be, well, when I shop, I want to shop when I'm on a full stomach. So I need to create that. So you create a list of good habits that you want to insert in there. And so how do you go about creating habits? That's a whole nother topic. You can join me in an upcoming habit building workshop on here on Life Coach University. Or in the meantime, I've got 2 books that I recommend. One is Atomic Habits by James Clear, and the other one is Tiny Habits by BJ Frog. Both of these are instrumental in the coaching that I do. They were instrumental in helping me develop the habits that I did. Both have extraordinary things, and they're easy because Atomic is small. Tiny Habits, it all starts tiny. You don't have to do any big, major, life-changing things. I will give you a simple trick right now. I hate to use the word trick. I will give you a simple tool to use. It's habit stacking. So take a previous habit that you're already doing and stack the new habit behind it. So let's say after I brush my teeth, I'm going to do 5 push-ups because I want to build a habit of doing push-ups. So you could stack the new habit behind that old one. So anytime we change a habit, we feel a lot of discomfort. It doesn't feel good. There's a lot of bad feelings that go along with it. And this next tool is going to help you with that. And that's strengthening your emotional IQ, your emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence is defined as our ability to recognize, understand, and manage your emotions. Now think about having better control of your emotions and better control of that feeling part of that behavioral loop, right? This is like being able to stop yourself from going down that super highway and then going down that thorny path instead, when you've got better understanding and better control of your emotions. And the best example I've had on this was shared with me by another coach, is you becoming, getting stronger with your emotional IQ is like becoming the CEO of your life, right? I want you to imagine like you're the CEO of your life and your company, and you want to achieve something in your company. So you brought all your employees in to share their ideas, and your employees are their emotions. And on the left-hand side of the table is all your good emotions, all the fun ones like happiness, joy, creation, imagination, inspiration, right? They all feel good. But on the other half is the ones you don't like, right? Shame, anxiety, frustration, depression, all those ones. And yet, so you're trying to achieve something new, and they're all raising their hands trying to give you ideas, but you only call on the good ones. You only call because those are the ones that make you feel good. But the negative emotions over here actually have something to tell you. There's a meaning behind them. They have ways of teaching you how to achieve the success you want. So if you don't call on them, I equate it to this. It's like trying to play a football game with only your offense, and you never put your defense out there. You're never going to win the game doing that, right? So by calling on the whole team, you better understand the messages that your emotions are trying to send you, right? And then the next tool that I'm going to share with you to effectively help you become the CEO. And that tool is actually taking responsibility of your life. I know it doesn't sound like a tool, but it really is. You need to understand that you're responsible for your results. There's that old saying, like, you made the bed you're lying in. So what do? We need to stop blaming others for our results. We need to stop making excuses for our failures, and we need to start finding solutions that are going to work. And that's so much more fun than the blame and shame game, right? The compare and despair, right? But I also want to share with you that the realization, taking responsibility, is probably one of the most horrible feelings out there. Because when you first realize that you're the one that is responsible for your financial situation or your bad health, that's a horrible feeling to feel that. Nobody wants to feel that feeling. But on the flip side of that, if you have the power to create that, you have the power to change it. And that, my friends, that power is like the most empowering feeling that you could ever want to have. So that's it in a nutshell. That's we self-sabotage by shooting ourselves in the foot. We do it because it's the easiest and simplest way for our brain to save energy, and it's just easier for it to do. The 5 things that we can do to help ourselves is we can become more aware. We can do more evaluations on our behaviors. We can assess our habits and get rid of the good ones, or get rid of the bad ones and keep the good ones. And then we can strengthen our emotional IQ and take responsibility for our life. So I do see that we have a question that came up from before. Somebody said here, wow, your analogies are really powerful. I'm definitely going to have to watch the rerun and write them all down. The latter technique you walked us through feels manageable, and that might work for me. I have tried telling myself to change certain beliefs, but it felt like I was forcing myself, and that way has not worked for me. Yeah, because you don't believe it, right? You know, everybody's telling you out there, you need to believe in yourself, right? I struggled with that. I was like, I want to believe in myself, but inside I knew I didn't. And so I just, one by one, I just got myself onto those different rungs of the ladder. Thank you for sharing that. I totally appreciate that. So any more questions at this point, or does anybody have a way that they think they might be self-sabotaging that they want to ask something about? I'd be glad to possibly point some things out for you. I'm not seeing anything. And I'll just share with you another thing, right? The entire time leading up to this presentation, and I could talk about this for hours and days, But I kept doing little things to self-sabotage myself, like leading up to this. I know that that little guy on my shoulder was like, Bryan, you're going to mess up. You're going to knock something over on your desk. You're not going to sound right. You're not going to do all the things. He was just screaming at me. And I actually took like the 15 minutes before I started here, because I didn't even know where the questions are. The Q&A was on this part of it, or the chat box, because I've just used Zoom for one-on-one, and it's never been like this group thing. So I had a lot of doubts. I had a lot of things going on, but I widened that gap between stimulus and response. And I said, what do I want to think instead? And so I actually took the time for 15 minutes before I just did this presentation to think good thoughts. You know, you've done these things in the past. You've done a lot of speaking. You've done a lot of teaching. You've done a lot of these things. So it really helped me out. So if nobody has anything further, I'm going to wrap things up. And once again, my name is Bryan Peterson. I am a coach with Achieve, Grow, Succeed Coaching. And I want to finish off with, once again, I remind you that this was brought to you by the Life Coach University and its Pay It Forward platform, where coaches from around the world gathered on a mission to coach millions more. All that we ask of you is that you join us in paying it forward yourself. We don't care how you do it. We just want you, we just want to create the biggest ripple effect of gift giving the world has ever seen. Pay it forward yourself by using the coaching. Share what you've learned with a friend. Share the Life Coach University and all of its wonderful coaches on there and the things that they can do. Point that out to your friends. Let them do it. Just make somebody laugh. You know, give somebody a hug. Pay it forward in whatever way you want. Just joining us and helping us make this the world that we want to live in. One filled with joy, peace, love, and meaningful connection. I thank you all. I want to finish this off with, you're amazing. I know you can do it. Have a wonderful afternoon. Bye.